Israel News Update, May 2025. These should be days of rejoicing in Israel and in the Middle East. According to press reports, there's a ceasefire. There's going to be a cessation of hostilities and a much better life for people to be living in. As a matter of fact, the President of the United States, he said he personally will sign and initiate the ceasefire. However, the reality is something else. We're not talking about a ceasefire, we're talking about a hudna. A hudna, according to the Islamic Encyclopedia, means that the Muslim can start and stop whenever they want. In other words, it's not a mutual thing. Now, in terms of the actual people, the actual entities that are fighting Israel, well, they're not agreeing to any cessation of hostilities. The war between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which people don't even know about, which began in 1945, 80 years ago, is something that is not stopped. There is an understanding that maybe they will not fund a warlike activity but there's nothing in writing about that. That's very clear. Now, in terms of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, of which Hamas is an integral part, there was a peace process back in 1993, which on the White House lawn, where the President of the United States and the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, what was then called the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, sat for something which was called the Declaration of Principles against war, except for one thing. Whereas the Declaration of Principles was passed by the United States Congress and passed by the Russian Duma. The Russians were also involved in the process. The PLO never ratified the accord, and has never ratified it to this day. So it's a piece of paper. And the second thing, which was implicit and explicit, it was that the PLO was supposed to cancel its war against the Jews, something called the Palestinian Covenant, and has never done so. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about an entity in full state of war with Israel. And the other entity, which became prominent this week, was Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, the President of the United States put his prestige behind the line that he would go to Saudi Arabia and speak about peace. The Saudis are still supporting the war against the Jews. Now, that began in 1945, February 14th, 1945. The president, the king of Saudi Arabia, Ibn Saud, met with the FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the American president, and asked for access to oil after World War II. And the president was given a very firm answer. If you abandon Zionism, we'll be delighted to give you all the oil you want. And that was that agreement. The agreement between the Saudis and the Americans from February 14th, 1945, is now in the Peter Bergson Library at Yale University. You can see it. Peter Bergson himself, whose name was also Hillel Cook, showed it to me. He died in 1992, but he showed it to me in 1987. Very clear accord between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia that so long as the U.S. supports Zionism and the Zionist entity, they will not budge, and the war will continue. Now, how does that war express itself in terms of practical issues? Well, there's a school system supported by 135 nations around the world for the Palestinian children. Now, there's three elements of that school system, and we've had the opportunity, because of Yasser Arafat, the head of the PLO, giving me the authorization to go through their school books, to look at their school books, and to all of them, all 226 school books now being used in the Palestinian Authority. We engage the services of Dr. Arnon Gross, an expert on languages, a person who was the number 2 man in the Israel Broadcast Corporation, Israel Broadcast Authority, which deals with the Arab sector, and he knows his stuff. And he's been, ever since the new school system came into effect on August 1st, 2000, he's been looking at all the school books, all the textbooks. And there's three aspects of the textbooks which come to be today. One, the legitimization of Israel. Textbooks do not recognize the Jewish historical ties to the land of Israel or the right of Jews to live here. Number two, demonization of Jews. Uh, Israeli policies are equated with Nazism. Jews are portrayed as inherently oppressive and violent. Number three, the advocacy of the armed struggle. The peace with Israel is rejected in favor of what they call resistance and framed as a religious duty. Martyrdom and armed struggle are glorified, and terror attacks against Jews justified as legitimate. Now, this is very important because this is what the Saudis are supporting and not saying anything about stopping that support. Very important that you have a school system which is intact today, and as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the declaration of war from PLO is still there. The covenant is still there, and the Arab League, the League of Arab States, with the exception of Egypt and Jordan, are all still at war with Israel. Something I learned back in 1962. I took my first course on the Middle East. Was that the Arab League means that every Arab nation has the right to attack Israel. And that seems something far-fetched. However, the attacks that Israel's been undergoing in the last 35 ballistic missile attacks from Yemen since March 14th of this year means that the issue of the possibility of attacks from all the Arab countries on Israel is very much there. So this is what we're seeing. And the tie-in to Iran is that Iran has come in as a major factor, as an ally, rather than as an antagonist, but as an ally to the Arab world. The movie I want to show you right now is a movie which we made a few years ago. It's about the combination of the Islamic, Iranian, and the PLO joint attacks, joint activity, and based actually in UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which has 59 refugee camps in which the children, in 76 years after the declaration of Israel's independence, these children still live in. We have 5 million Arabs living in refugee camps, and they live there under the premise and promise of the right of return. Every child knows where he's going back to, and the most recent action taken by by UNRWA has been to wipe out the names of any Jewish village, any Jewish city, and replace it with Arab names. Now you can see our research at IsraelBehindTheNews.com. You can see this curriculum. You can see the role of UNRWA in the Armed Rebellion, and you can see exactly what I've been talking about in terms of the details. If there was a hint of peace from the Palestinian Arab world, we would see it, but unfortunately we don't. And what Israel has purposely has made the mistake of downplaying its situation, whereas the PLO and Hamas and the Arab world are accusing Israel of planned genocide. The documents seized during this war in the last 2 years from Hamas and from the UNRWA show that there is a massive plan for genocide from their point of view, not from Israel's point of view. In other words, they plan and favor mass murder of the Jews, and they don't they don't hesitate to say it in those terms. So I would recommend sitting back, watching the movie we're about to show you, and the whole connection between the Iranian missiles and the education that they're getting. This is David Badin reporting in Jerusalem, and you can see our material on our site at IsraelBehindTheNews.com. There's hundreds of articles there, but the most important thing is to take a look at our movies, take a look at our documented reports, and this is how we can get the point across. Israel's been very hesitant to emphasize the fact that there's a coalition fighting Israel, not just Hamas. Hamas fights Israel, but so are the Palestinian security forces, which are dominated by the Fatah, which is the mainstream organization of the Palestinian Arab movement. Fatah, also known as the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or the Palestinian Authority. These are the issues that Israel has ignored, and as a result, it's paying a dear price in public relations. Whereas the other side is saying that Israel is conducting a war of genocide. These people don't hesitate to show that they're connecting a war of genocide, and that's something for everyone to take a look at. This is David Bradeen reporting from Jerusalem. You can be in touch with me through my website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com. Thank you.
For years, negotiations have been ongoing with Iran to limit its military power. They have now come to a head in Washington. Few people, however, have discussed what will happen if the billions in frozen Iranian assets are actually released to Tehran. For decades, Iran has been a source of funding and weapons for Hezbollah and Hamas. Hezbollah has been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Americans in Lebanon, and is believed to have blown up Jewish buildings in Argentina. Those bombings in Argentina killed over 100 people. Argentina's former top prosecutor, who was recently murdered, accused Hezbollah of operating in more than 10 countries as an Iranian proxy. The other proxy of Iran is Hamas. The flow of arms and funds from Iran to Gaza has helped create a network of tunnels and a well-stocked arsenal of rockets, drones, and other deadly weapons. In Iran, leaders have been steadfast in their support for Hamas and continue to vow to arm the Palestinians.
و به خصوص دنیای اسلام موظفند هر چه میتوانند به تجهیز ملت فلسطین کمک کنند.
With the promise of billions in cash and weapons, Hamas continues to prepare for its next war. This past summer, we visited the Gaza Strip, where Hamas held military training camps for 15,000 boys and girls. These children are students in schools run by UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. At the UNRWA schools, the kids are taught that they have the right of return by force of arms to villages that their families left in 1948. This summer's military camp was a mix of nationalism, radical Islam, and brainwashing, convincing the kids to become child soldiers. The campers and counselors were eager to express their yearning for jihad and martyrdom.
في سبيل الله نمضي في سبيل الله نمضي في سبيل الله نمضي في سبيل الله نمضي. في قطاع غزة يوجد أكثر من 50 مخيم، العدد اللي التحق فيه أكثر من 15,000 فارس من فرسان حماس. في البداية احنا بدينا في المحاضرات الأخلاقية والتعبئة والتوجيه، كانت عن القرآن الكريم ثم أخلاق الشاب المسلم، ثم بدأت بالتدريبات العسكرية فتح الميدان وتدريبات اللياقة والمشاة العسكرية، ثم تلاها تدريبات على السلاح وفن التعامل مع السلاح. كسرنا حاجز الخوف عند هؤلاء الفتية أو الشباب في مقتبل عمرهم. الشباب استطاعوا اقتحام النيران، تفجير. في الأمس كان هناك تفجير المغتصبات الصهيونية، كانت هناك أجسام، وتعلموا فن استعمال المتفجرات وتفجيرها.
عن طريق خطف الجنود ونعمل عمليات استشهادية والمقاومة.
نقول لهم انتظرونا بني صهيون فسوف نجز رقابكم وسوف ندمر بيوتكم ونحرق بيوتكم فوق رؤوسكم ونهدمها فوقكم وإنا قادمون.
نقول لهم والله لنأتينهم عن قريب وسنقطع رقابهم بإذن الله.
احنا في غزة عايشين فقط للجهاد والمقاومة، يعني ما لنا في حياتنا إلا الجهاد والمقاومة وعبادة الله سبحانه وتعالى.
حق العودة مقدس مهما طال الوقت، لكن سيعود، والدولة الإسرائيلية دولة زائلة زائفة مهما طال الوقت فستزول، ولن نعترف نحن لن نعترف بإسرائيل إطلاقا. طبعا أنا انضميت لمخيم فرسان حماس حبا في استرجاع الوطن الفلسطيني وحبا في الموت في سبيل الله. الصواريخ هي حلنا الوحيد لاسترجاع الوطن. طبعا لا أرضى إطلاقا لأن هذا التقسيم يمس بأوضاع المسلمين في فلسطين، وهذا يعتبر تدنيس للمسجد الأقصى.
احنا نتمنى انه يوم من الايام نقدر نطلعهم كلهم من القدس وندوس على رقابهم وعلى رؤوسهم، لانه هم جنسوا دياناتنا وجنسوا الاماكن المقدسه عنا.
ايوه داوم زحف، يلا اسرع من هيك.
أن أتعلم الرجولة وأرجع أراضينا المحتلة وأحرر الأسرى من بين الاحتلال.
تعلمت أن أدافع عن أرضي وجيت هنا عشان أحرر الأقصى، عشان القدس معروفة للعرب مش لليهود. أنا أرض وقف إسلامي، ما ينفعش ولا واحد يفرط فيها.
القدس بس للمسلمين، للعرب والمسلمين بس، واليهود ما لهمش شيء في القدس.
بإذن الله سنحررها من بدمائنا وبدماء شهدائنا بإذن الله تعالى، بالاستشهاد والعمليات الاستشهادية بإذن الله.
This year, for the first time, Hamas recruited young girls to its military camps. Here, Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh congratulates the girls at a camp banquet.
وما هذه المخيمات التي نحن بصدد الاحتفاء بها الآن إلا الامتداد لهذه الجهود المباركة ولهذا العمل المتواصل في مشروع التحرير والعودة إلى القدس والأقصى.
Listen to their counselors talk about their aspirations to become warriors.
فنحن هذه القدس لنا، هي عاصمتنا ليس لليهود. هم يزعمون أن لهم الهيكل المزعوم، هو ليس لهم، هو هيكل سليمان ليس لهم. القدس لنا نحن فقط، للمسلمين فقط. هؤلاء اليهود الخنازير ليس لهم لا قدس ولا معالم في المسجد الأقصى، هم لهم فقط بيوت الخنازير وليس لهم في الأقصى.
القدس لا تسترد إلا بالسلاح وبسلاح المقاومة، ورسالتي إلى المقاومة أوجهها أن امسكوا، ارفعوا سلاحكم في وجه المحتل، أن اتحدوا في وجه المحتل حتى تحرير القدس وكامل فلسطين إن شاء الله.
The girls performed a war dance for the Prime Minister. At the boys' camps, the children were trained for combat and guerrilla warfare. Iranian funding for Hamas and Hezbollah serves as a lifeline for their goal, war against Israel. Billions in new Iranian funds will guarantee a new generation of motivated and trained killers. Is that what the world needs today?